Although Clark has encountered many difficulties on the court, nothing has irritated fans more than the erratic and downright dubious officiating. From obvious no calls to pointless technical, it seems as though the referees are on a personal vendetta. Is this simply a difficult game, or is there something more going on? The atmosphere in the arena is electric every time Clark takes the court, and fans are standing there waiting for signature deep threes and spectacular assists. But Clark is unable to concentrate on her game because she must constantly glance over Indiana, leads by 11 with 548 seconds left. So what's really going on? Are these calls simply bad, or is there a pattern of bias emerging? We're breaking down 10 of the most outrageous game-changing calls that left fans, analysts, and even players scratching their heads. Trust me, when we get to number 7, you won't believe it. Her shoulder is not just for defenders, but also for the referees waiting to blow the whistle at the most dubious moments. The crowd, which was once roaring in support, frequently turns against the officials, jeering decisions that make no sense. How obvious this has become. Let's begin with one of the most absurd no calls in recent memory. On September 22, the playoffs began. Tensions were high, and all eyes were on Caitlin Clark, the league's most exciting rookie. Instead of a thrilling matchup, fans were treated to one of the season's most egregious officiating errors. Minutes into the game, Seward lunged for the ball, but the force of the impact left Clark momentarily stunned. Fans erupted in outrage, expecting at least a foul call, if not a flagrant, but the referees remained silent, and the play went on as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Clark, clearly affected by the hit, struggled to find her rhythm and finished the first half shooting an uncharacteristic 1 for 9 from the field, including a Z for 6 from beyond the arc, with a nasty bruise. Clark was blinking as she tried to regain her focus, but the crowd waited and waited for the whistle, but it never came. It began to physically form around her eye, serving as a reminder of yet another missed call. Park is still down after taking a shot after the pass to Boston. This was just the first of many instances that left people wondering what the officials were doing. Whether this was just another difficult playoff basketball game or something more. In any case, it was obvious that Clark would not receive any superstar calls. Rather, she would receive some of the worst non-calls the league had to offer, as everyone else has witnessed. I'm calling her in, and I'm telling her I need answers. Fans went on social media to demand accountability from the league. One angry viewer called it the worst basketball game ever officiated, while another criticized the refereeing as a complete embarrassment. However, despite the spectators' growing annoyance, Caitlin Clark did what she does best, remained focused, and continued to fight. The biased officiating didn't end there, though, as Clark faced unrelenting physicality throughout the game. Take a look at this moment when Marina Muff fiercely defended Clark as she made her first postseason basket. Clark was trying to get past Mae Clark to the rim, but when he reversed it home through the contact. Even the game's commentators couldn't ignore the excessive contact, drawing attention to the obvious fouls, but the referees were completely unconcerned. Clark, however, didn't let the missed calls define her. She found other strategies. Ways to help, demonstrating once more why she is one of the league's toughest competitors. However, this wasn't just one game. It was a stark illustration of how officiating can influence results and, more significantly, put players in danger. Then there was another instance of startling physicality that left spectators wondering where the lines were drawn between aggressive defense and downright dangerous play. This time, it was against the Connecticut Sun on August 28. Everything appeared normal until Alyssa Thomas dominated Clark with a shoulder check that sent the rookie collapsing to the ground. Another look at the heavy contacts. The arena gasped in shock. And fans were furious that the officials only called a common foul. One person tweeted, "That's not basketball," while another person called it a cheap shot that involved leaning in with the shoulder. The fact that it wasn't called as such only increased concerns about the WNBA officiating, even after Caitlin Clark endured relentless physicality. It shook her confidence, but she got back up and began working right away. Her ability to recover and remain focused on the game was evidence of her mental toughness. Despite the blows, Clark continued to make an impact. demonstrating why she is one of the league's most determined athletes. For Alyssa Thomas, they won't look at this idea, but it has inspired the fans here. However, just when it appeared that Clark had conquered every obstacle put in her path, anew as the game against the Seattle Storm on August 18th approached its conclusion. Energizing the crowd and feeding off the electric atmosphere when Skylar Din Smith suddenly made her move. This time, controversy arose from an unexpected source. Picture a timeout, a fired-up rookie rallying her fans, and then a veteran stepping in with a blatantly shoved her. How the initial excitement in the arena quickly turned into stunned gasps, followed by a wave of angry drunkenness, but the referees once again let it slide. No foul, no warning, just silence. This moment immediately sparked a debate about sportsmanship and fairness, with fans flooding social media with questions about how this is not a foul, why certain players seem to get away with blatant aggression, and why Clark continued to be scrutinized for the smallest actions. The WNBA August 18th matchup against the Seattle Storm was already intense, but what happened next escalated the heat even further. With 714 seconds left in the third quarter, Caitlin Clark missed a shot. And in a moment of frustration, Clark's own displays of emotion and passion on the court were met with quick technicals and warnings. Warning Smith's push went completely unnoticed by officials. Before anyone could even comprehend what had happened, the referee's whistle blew a technical foul. And Caitlin Clark was given a technical. The call sent shockwaves through the arena. Fans debated whether this was truly unsportsmanlike behavior, or just a player responding to a difficult moment. Clark later clarified her reaction, but the damage had already been done. I received a technical for essentially being angry at myself because I missed the three and then I hit the backboard. And he told me it was disrespectful. Basketball. Despite the dubious call, Clark didn't let it deter her. She remained focused on leading her team to victory. While others might have let their frustration fester, she responded by letting her game speak for herself. I believe he inspired me to play even harder after he did that, and I want to thank him for that. Clark didn't just move on, though. You have more in the shove from dismissing that this is where things get really interesting. Is this kind of reaction consistently penalized, or is Clark being singled out? Let's take a closer look at how referees have handled similar situations for other players in the league. She maintained her energy and remained laser-focused, and the result was a commanding 17-point win for the Fever, with Clark dropping an impressive 23 points. When the Indiana Fever faced the Las Vegas Aces on September 11th at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, a split-second collision would cause outrage and raise the terrifying question of how far is too far when it comes to physical play. The energy in the arena was electric until Jackie Young's hand suddenly stopped making contact with Caitlin. This was just the beginning of the way... obvious double standard at play. There will also be one DT technical fouls. Park was momentarily shaken by Clark's face, which caused him to stumble backwards. He hesitated inside the reverso and took a big hit on Jackie Young. So this was the second time we've seen a heavy collision in the last minute. The reaction was immediate. Fans were left wondering what they had just seen, and disbelief went viral on social media. However, Clark, as usual, chose to move on and resume the game. However, the moment hung in the air as a stark illustration of the difference between tough defense and reckless play. Clark's tenacity was evident, but it was unclear how much more of this she was expected to endure. On May 22, 2024, the Indiana Fever were engaged in a heated battle with the Seattle Storm. As the first half was coming to an end and tensions were running high, Caitlin Clark, who was always aggressive, drove hard to the basket but was hit once, twice, and a third time without any whistle seconds. Following the game, head coach Christy Sides expressed her frustration by saying, We've just got to get better with the officiating. We've got to get some of the... Her words weren't just frustration. They were a direct call for fairness, consistency, and the respect Clark deserved on the field. Left goes around the gum drive's baseline, and suddenly we're pretty close. This has been as close as it's been. The crowd, fully locked in, erupted not in celebration, but rather in sheer disbelief. Court, but the more pressing question was whether this was just differently than everyone else. As the season progressed, it became increasingly difficult to ignore this question as one controversy gave way to another, creating a pattern in which Caitlin Clark was at the center of moments that were jaw-dropping, but not for the reasons you might expect. This time, however, it wasn't about her game-changing shots or record-breaking performances. Rather, it was about the calls, or lack thereof, that led to the tension in the arena on June 19th between the Washington Mystics and Indiana Fever. It is intense, the stakes are high. Clark makes her move. The defense closes in, and then Stephanie Dawson steps up, makes contact, the ball is swatted away, and the crowd holds its breath for the inevitable whistle, but it never comes. Park turns on the Jets Park to the rim and blocks, and Deason gets back. Park thought there was a well, and social media erupts in shock at how a clear foul like this is ignored. It's one thing to let the game flow, but this felt different. Well, it's got a pretty good... Let's go back to one of Clark's first games in the WNBA, a game that set the tone for everything that followed on May 18th, Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty. Some claim it's just part of being a rookie, and that Clark is just getting the typical welcome to the league treatment, but others see something more alarming. Seem to follow Clark every game. One fan bluntly states that elbow to the face is a no call, but Clark hitting the post is a technical. The inconsistency is beginning to mount. Professional level moves with her usual assurance across the court. But then Brianna Stewart sets a screen so hard that it sends shockwaves through the crowd. The impact is undeniable, and the collision is obvious. Remains silent. Clark stumbles, visibly shaken, and fans watch in shock. Yes, screens are a part of basketball, but where does a strong pick turn into excessive contact? And more importantly, why does it happen? It's difficult to ignore the fact that Clark doesn't receive the same calls as everyone else. This isn't due to bad luck or a tough defense. Rather, it's about consistency, or, in Clark's case, the lack of it. The question is whether this is simply tough rookie treatment, or if the league is purposefully ignoring things when it comes to Caitlin CLK. Clark's mental toughness has been put to the test time and time again, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened on May 20th.
It should have been a routine play became a moment that had both fans and analysts in credit.
The game against the Connecticut Sun began normally enough, but things took a painful turn when Clark was navigating a screen when something happened to her ankle. She rolled awkwardly, and in a moment she was on the floor, grimacing in pain. The entire arena held its breath, thinking that they could stop Caitlin and that they were the better team. Caitlin goes down. Surely the officials would step in. But again, there was no foul, no stoppage, nothing but Clark clutching her ankle. Her fans couldn't believe what they were seeing during the game, and social media went crazy. If a hard screen injury that resulted in a rolled ankle wasn't enough to get a call, then what would the question be? It wasn't just about fairness, it was about player safety, but Clark, being Clark, didn't let it stop her despite her obvious discomfort. She refused to let the injury stop her from playing. And this moment was painful because it demonstrated exactly what makes her unique. Not just her skill, but also her... Clark isn't just playing for highlight reels. She's playing to win no matter the challenges now. What young girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How can you sit here and claim that everyone should take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? So dumb that they just make it look like a soap. Caitlin Clark has faced every challenge from brutal body checks to blatant non-calls. The real takeaway is that Clark's resilience never wavered. regardless of how many hits she took, how many times the whistle remained silent, or how unfair the treatment seemed. She adapted and found ways to excel even when the odds and the referees seemed to be stacked against her. These weren't just bad calls. They were moments that sparked outrage, ignited debates, and forced fans to question the integrity of WNBA officiating. We've broken down the calls, seen the hits, and watched Clark battle through it all. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. Is the WNBA failing to protect its biggest star, or is this just part of the game name? Let us know in the comments, like, and subscribe so you never miss. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one. WNBA. How does the league ensure fair play while maintaining the intensity that makes basketball so exciting?